Well, welcome everyone to the 157th edition of the Nuthouse podcast. It's the first one of 2016. I'm your host, Andy Patterson. Apologies about the late start time. That's partly my fault. Simple fact is I had to wait on my desktop getting delivered after some repairs. As a result, obviously the darts final being on and stuff, people have got other priorities, New Year, family, all that sort of stuff. So I'm only joined this week by Steve Wellens and Paul Webb so far. Maybe get Adam Smith on in a wee bit. Now, if you didn't like listening to me speak whatsoever, or my voice just does your tits in, or whatever it is, I'm the only one that's seen the fights from Japan this week, so it's casual central. Fucking Tommy's are running about daft guys, as you know, with this hashtag casual, and he's a fucking just living up to their own. He's basically what he's saying, you know that. Anyway, how's it going? Happy New Year, Ease.
Happy New Year, mate.
It's a good year for you, mate, so far, after what happened last year.
Oh, well, the only way is up, really, isn't it, after 2015? There's only, you can't get worse, can it, really? I mean, I've been at work every day, so I've not had anything, been off Twitter, barely said a word to anybody, so there's only so much trouble you can get in. So now I'm hoping for a fight-filled, good matchups, get back to going to shows as much as I can. Now the good people of DVLA Swansea will be posting my licence back next month, so I'm excited.
It's all looking good then. Well, it could get worse, mate, because you could have basically like doing this with no itinerary, no agenda. But anyway, I'll just run through the Japanese fights now. Obviously, the first card was from Tuesday from Tokyo, Japan. Nayu Inoue made a return to action against Waralto Paredes. Uh, Pretty emphatic, actually. I mean, he's been out for 2 years now. Sorry, 2 years. He's been out for a year with a hand surgery. Back, smashed the guy out within 2 rounds. I think he even stopped him at a jab, actually, at one point. So, good to see the little monster back. Problem we're going to have is people are going to be looking at him having unification fights and stuff. And I actually forgot, it was Alex who reminded me the day actually that stated that Inoue's actually got a rematch clause with Omar Narvaez, so that rematch could happen at some point. And I think he's actually got another mandatory defence as well after beating that guy, because the guy he beat on Tuesday there, Drew is it Sabello, I think his name is. Anyway, because of the draw, the WBO in their wisdom says that both will get mandatory shots. So I think Inoue is going to be busy this year for the first 6 to 7 months anyway. So you can maybe be looking at maybe a bigger fight towards the tail end of the year. Now Yakira Higashi is back amongst the titles after probably a shock victory actually against Javier Mendoza. Fought like a guy who basically knew his career was on the line. Picked up the IBF flyweight title. I think that's now a three-time champion. 120, 107, 119, 109, 117, 111 across the three scorecards. It was pretty emphatic actually. I think he practically won every round in my personal opinion. Fought every round like it was the last round actually. So I think he actually, as I say, he knew his career was on the line. Which takes us on to, what was it, Thursday? Uchiyama against Olivier Flores. Third round stoppage. Saw today. Uchiyama, it's a point with him now. I'm slightly disappointed with him because the WBA never seem to kind of force any mandatories on him or anything like that. He seems to get the cherry pick his opponents. Gets to fight maybe once at best twice a year. Well, certainly that's been his last aim over the last year and a bit. Anyway, it's been like one fight a year. So no big unification fights. No, Donny was big on the Broner fight happened at some point 2-3 years ago. Unfortunately, it's never happened. I didn't catch the Takeuchi De La Rosa fight. Tanaka against Salvador, and this was another card in Japan. Kosi Tanaka, I think he's 19, 20-year-old. Fifth fight, defending his title for, I think it was the first or second time. Behind him almost every scorecard, I think. And then I think he got knocked down in the fourth round or fifth round and turned around and stopped the guy in the sixth. This kid actually, I fear for his actual his development. I mean, I think he's still got space to kind of work and defend with and stuff like that. But he's got to learn how to defend, move the head and stuff. Because I think with his style of fighting, I don't think he's going to have much of a longevity. Shall we say? He's not going to have a long career. Personal opinion. Ioka against Revecchio, good fight, really good fight. I think Revecchio tried his best until I think there was talk about weight issues before that fight. So you've seen Ioka working the body, especially left hooks to the body and stuff. So maybe it has something to do with going down the stretch. Rebecca, though, I think his corner eventually threw in the towel, but he was basically getting beat up and beat down. It was a very impressive performance for Mayoka. And the other shock actually was probably Takayama against Argamudo, which I haven't seen yet. Technical decision, I think. Takayama's eyes were all badly swollen, badly cut as well, so hence the reason why I went to a technical decision anyway. So he's lost his title on the card, so maybe a rematch will happen at some point. And I think that's it, gentlemen.
Well, Andy, I'm not quite as casual as I thought I have. I did see the Inoue fight. Someone put a link up, I think, on YouTube link on Twitter, and I did actually see it, and I was quite impressed with what I saw from this guy. Now, I'm no expert then on these weight classes, as you know, but Inoue is the guy who knocked out Narvaez, is that right?
Yeah, 2 rounds, mate, yeah. Pretty emphatically, actually.
And isn't the guy who beat Butler, Tete, isn't he at that weight as well? I mean, is there any chance of a fight between them two?
I don't know what the situation with Tete. Obviously, he signed with Frank Warren, but he still gets classed as super flyweight. Gave up his title at the IBF when he beat Butler. There was talk about a bantamweight move. I actually googled it the other day. I've not actually seen anything about what his future plans are so far.
And there's obviously there's talk of Inoue fighting maybe Gonzalez. Gonzalez is 112 pounds, isn't he, flyweight? So there's only like a 3 pound difference. Is there any chance of them two sort of meeting, or maybe HBO maybe push something like that?
Well, I tell you what, mate. I was actually talking to Matty about this the other day. I don't know, as I say, with what Inoue's got. I mean, obviously the politics and the contract that he's tied up in. So he's got the Narvaez rematch. I think Narvaez is going to exercise that clause. He's going to have a mandatory defence with Sabio. I think his name is Carlos Sabello or something. His name is. I don't see the Gonzalez fight happening this year, in all honesty, mate. I really don't, because unless HBO come in with stupid money, I don't see it happening. As I said to Matt yesterday, I would probably see Inoue get an HBO debut against Alexei Rex Zhao. I think he's a top-ranked fighter, maybe on a card in Macau, possibly. He's ranked number 4 with the title that Inoue holds, I think, just now. So, that's a possible fight, but Gonzalez... He looked drained at the last fight. Actually, I think he kind of basically cut water pretty drastically for that fight, because he did look pretty drawn. So a move up, certainly no against the realms of possibility. As you say, it's only £3. It's a Strada fight we want to see with Gonzalez. I think Inoue, you're going to have to give him time, his contracts, his obligations, and just see how that injury holds up as well. So potentially end of the year, there's just something about. I don't think it will happen this year, though, mate. In all honesty.
Well, my final bit of knowledge on this subject, actually, just to ask you, I've been furiously box wrecking and stuff, and I see this guy who's ranked quite highly in the super flyweight division, Carlos Cuadras. Never heard of him before.
Yep.
34-0, 26 knockouts, really impressive statistical record. Is this guy a threat? Is that a potential future opponent?
Definitely, mate. I mean, as I say, again, if we can get the contracts out of the way, and we're waiting for a Gonzalez fight, then you want to see him in the unification fights. You're talking like, say, Carlos Cuadras. Good fighter. I would say he manages his gas tank, shall we say, but a really good fighter. I did think he was doing really well against. You'll see a Thai fighter's name on his record. They won by technical decision. Sirasat Somringi Veze, who I'm quite a fanboy, shall we say. The guy's just a complete brawler, this guy, and Cuadras schooled him for the first 6 rounds, and then Ringevese just turned the tables, started putting it on him, and a bad cut caused the fight to be stopped, and that's how Cuadras became champion. But good win against Concepcion, and then Coco Eto's. The thing that impressed me about that fight is Eto's got a lot of reach on him. He's very, very lanky for 115 pounds. Cuadras is probably a natural 115 fighter, so box well, manages gas tank pretty well, and closed the show, I think. So yeah, potential. That'll be a really good fight, and I think it would be a wee bit more a thinking fight as well, actually, for Inoue.
Cuadras would be IBF champ, would he, or Panama or something? Because I think Inoue is WBC. Is Inoue WBC, is he?
No, he's WBO, mate.
WBO, right. WBC, they can fight for WBO titles in Japan now, can't they?
Aye. Of course, Takayama lost his IBF title in Japan there as well, so...
Right.
Thing is, though, with obviously you were talking a lot about Inoue coming to America at some point. I mean, Japan seems to do quite a good job of keeping their fighters in-house. I don't know whether that's because there isn't the clamour for Japanese fighters on US TV, whether it's a language thing or whether it's just that both the US and the UK don't seem to import a lot of either Japanese opponents or certainly don't clamour to have Japanese fighters in obviously main event bills or chief support bills. I think Inoue fits. I mean, obviously, still haven't seen his fight from, is it New Year's Eve or a couple of days before, but I've seen him fight a few times before, and he's, I mean, devastating power, fantastic boxing skills. He would definitely translate, I think, to American TV. But to be fair, the bits I've seen of Japanese shows, they seem pretty decent. It's not like when you watch a Thailand show and it's in a hall with 400 people, and you know, you can understand why those kind of fighters are desperate to get out and fight in Macau, fight in America, fight wherever. But the Japan setup seems pretty decent. They seem to be having several guys either holding world championship belts or in and around that level. And it's just whether you think that Inoue is in a big rush to get out of there and to go fight elsewhere.
Well, it's not really down to Inoue in all honesty, because every professional boxer in Japan is going to have a manager under the JBC rules. So, and as a result of that, he's got to belong to a boxing gym which has got exclusive management rights to the boxer. So, as I say, the gym is basically his manager, and they basically control his career. It's just, you know, as a member of every, I guess it's a regional subsidiary, I think it's called. You know, the Japanese Pro Boxing Association under the Japanese conventional gym system or something. It's a weird kind of setup. I wish Alistair was still around. Actually, he'd explain it better than me. And it's quite difficult apparently for fighters. You know, like take Koki Kameda for instance. I remember his gym lost the license after some issues with his dad in the corner. I think it was his brother as well, after like a body slamming somebody or whatever it was. But it's really hard to kind of transfer between gyms over there, because I think there's like transfer fees involved in that as well. So it would be quite difficult. So unless the gyms themselves are going to allow like Inoue to come to America, it's a different matter. Whether he wants to fight is one thing. The gym allowing it is a completely different matter.
The Japanese fighters do get very well paid at home, I know that, but they aren't averse to travelling. You know, they will travel. I mean, look at Takashi Miura recently against Vargas, and then there was that guy, was it Nishizawa, Ikizawa or something? He fought, I think it was Jesse Vargas, maybe last year in a brilliant fight.
The guy who fought Robert Guerrero. What was his name again?
Yeah,
I
can't remember.
But
you know, they will travel when necessary, and they're always, you know, stereotypically very tough guys, very physically fit guys, even if they haven't always got the, you know, the maximum amount of technical ability. Some of them they're always really fit and really strong. So I mean, anyway, I think if the money's right and the situation's right, he will come over. But like you say, the way things are set up with the titles, the gyms, and things like that, they do tend to stay at home, because sometimes it sounds like a pain in the arse to travel, if you know, for whatever reason.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I'm just trying to remember who the other titleists are at super flyweight, but no. What about Uchiyama? I mean, I don't know how closely you guys followed his career, but it's just something's lacking there actually. I think a guy who's been on top of that division now for what I think he's been classed as the de facto number one at 130 for what, the last 3-4 years perhaps, and then all he really does is rank some Panamanian ranked number 11, 12 fucking fighter or whatever it is. You know, it's just feel like his career's kind of like went out with it hasn't really been much. I mean, he's had that good win against I think he beat Mauro actually. I think about it, but I need to get his record up. But no, I'm really disappointed in him just now.
I wasn't that impressed with him. I can't think of who he's fought, to be honest.
He's getting on a bit though, isn't he? I mean, he's mid-30s, board coming up to 40.
Yeah.
Uchiyama. I mean, he's... Again, this is the difficulty when you have rankings the way that some of these organisations do, is that if he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to fight anyone particularly impressive. You know, he can coast by making mandatory defences or voluntary defences against some fairly average opponents. I mean, he fought, didn't he fight Takashi Mora years ago? But I mean, I couldn't tell you any of his fights. I couldn't tell you many fights he's had since. I know he fights fairly frequently though, doesn't he? I mean, he's 2-3 times a year guy. He's not an inactive fighter, but no, he's one of those. He's got his belt. The WBA, or whether it's the division, the WBA don't seem to be able to rank that many decent challengers, or whether the challengers that could be ranked don't seem to fancy that trip, so they'll go other routes. But he'll have that belt for a while. But I don't think he's wasting his career. I just think he's doing the bare minimum he needs to do to keep hold of that belt.
The thing is, I think he beat Yogi Solis. I just noticed his record there. Yadier Para stopped the guy in 5 rounds. This guy actually got stopped in 6 rounds against Alice Perez. Now, people were saying just, what, 3 weeks ago, Perez was probably the worst title holder I've ever seen.
And
Yeah,
Paul just said WBA as well, but I don't think there's any chance of anyone getting kicked off tonight because we're going to end up with one person left.
I was going to say, yeah, if you give me a 10-minute Panamanian ban, it could be just Andy talking to himself.
What I will say is, I don't know. Well, I don't know if you guys were around at the time actually, but 2-3 years ago, maybe slightly longer than that, Kazuto Ioka. We spoke about this guy when he was only like a 4 or 5, novice. Sorry. It got to a point where his career, I thought he stagnated. Lack of head movement, just went back in straight lines. They got to a point as well. The Panamanians actually called purse bids for the regular and super title unification to him and Roman Gonzalez. So they fucking dumped the belt, went up to 112, and Gonzalez followed up thereafter. So Ioka's then lost to Rungrong, who you kind of then think, right, okay, this guy definitely is going backwards. Revecchio is no slouch. He's a decent boxer. I think he's a former Olympian as well for the Argentinian squad. Competent fighter, interim title holder in the past as well. Took him close in the first fight. So it's really good to see Ioka probably, moving forward, but he's probably grown into weight more as well, I would probably say as well, but I still would say he's never going to fight Gonzalez just now, and I can't see the Japanese really pushing for any other bigger fights for that guy just now, unless they're going to try and get the unification with Rungrong, which would be interesting to see. I still think he loses that fight, actually.
So obviously we know that Japan puts on quite a lot of shows over Christmas and New Year's Eve traditionally. I remember though last year bigger fights or seemingly better shows. How, as obviously you probably watched all of them from both years, how does it compare? I think last year was
pretty decent, actually, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. So I was trying to rack back my brain trying to think of. I know a new A fought, but I think there were a few others.
Didn't Rigondo fight you? Man,
yeah,
put it down. Was that a year ago?
He beat the shit out of that guy. He made him face like a bag of spanners. Remember that?
Yeah. But he got dropped, didn't he? But yeah, he absolutely beat the guy up senseless. But I remember, like I said, there was like a little spate of a group of very, very good shows, and I looked at I think that's probably why I wasn't in a mad rush to watch these ones. I looked at what was on, and nothing really stood out apart from obviously a New Age return. But like I said, I remember last year they were putting on some really strong. I don't know what they do the rest of the year though, for 11 months out of 12, because their shows are infrequent and they don't have that general kind of quality. They seem to save it all. It must be. I mean, actually, I don't understand what it is, but I think it's obviously that time of year for boxing must just be hugely popular in Japan.
Just try to think what else was happening there over the course of the last couple of weeks there. But no, I mean, I've enjoyed the week off obviously, but we kind of went into this blind, so I don't know what you want to do with these year-end awards. I'd expected a few more of the lads on here to try and square it away. But
are we not going to discuss David Hayes' amazing TV deal that he doesn't have yet?
YouTube.
I was just going to say that.
Okay, YouTube. I seen that actually. There's a boxing scene, I think, mentioned that he was thinking about putting it on YouTube, and there was a wee comment on it. I think I actually need to put a sort of a belly of the week. He just stated, he says, "I want to give back to my loyal fans." How about giving back the fucking money they spent?
Well, he's the boy who cried wolf for the TV networks. I think that's the problem, Can you rely on giving an hour, and it would just be an hour because it wouldn't be for the undercard, to give to a David Hay fight, which you just don't know whether it's actually going to happen or not. I mean, ticket sales have apparently been quite strong for this show. I mean, according to the O2 bods, I had some woman from the O2 Arena pull me up on a tweet when I said the show I bet it hasn't done 5,000, and the response she put was double that and a few more. So, I looked into her, and she was some director of communications for the O2 or something along those lines, some silly made-up high-paid title. But I mean, people are interested in it. But yeah, I've heard all sorts of rumours. Apple TV, YouTube, various different ways. I think at this point, I think streaming it for free online would probably be decent PR for Hay, but I think it just goes to show what happens when you step out the limelight for 3 years and suddenly everyone forgets you.
Well, see, the thing is, if you're going to put it on YouTube, would you know about just going cap in hand to ITV?
Yeah,
Is it going to make much difference? Is it going to make much sponsorship of adverts off YouTube than they would off? I don't know. Would they
no,
make any
No,
money off ITV?
no, make
it'll
nothing
co-
on it on YouTube.
it'll cost him money to put it on YouTube from a production standpoint because he'll get nothing from the views, and obviously they've got to pay to film and edit the thing. So it's going to be that'll be a loss leader in terms of ITV. I mean, Hay has got that connection with being on I'm a Celebrity. Obviously, he is still very well known, but again, I just don't see a terrestrial channel wanting to give airtime to what is, on the face of it, a glorified easy comeback, or what should be an easy comeback for someone who's been out the ring 3.5 years. And he's got the venue, he's got the backing of the arena. I mean, I've never seen an arena effectively co-promote a show before, which is basically what's happened. It's if you look at a lot of the paperwork, it's not David Hay at the O2, it's David Hay in association with the O2, and you've seen the amount of times they're plugging tickets and all sorts on their Twitter feed. But channels just don't want it. He finds himself in quite a difficult position. Sky obviously didn't want the fight, or it wasn't an option. I don't think Box Nation had any plans. I don't think that Frank, as much as Frank and Hay have worked together, I'm not sure that's an avenue that Warren's desperate to go down. Even though it would have given their subscribers something to watch in January, because it's generally a pretty barren time for the year. But if Channel 5 weren't into it, Spike, if these names have gone by, you're suddenly left with your Euro Sports, or you're sticking it on something like a prime time equivalent. I think if he does it for free, it's okay. If he does a charge stream, I think it'd be an absolute disaster if he does that. But to be fair, I want to see the fight as much as people have taken the mick, and he's been a bit of a whipping boy the last few months. I'm excited to see what he's still got, if anything. I'm not sure we'll learn all that much, but it'd just be good to see David Hay back in the ring.
Has anybody actually seen this opponent, guy? I haven't even YouTubed him or anything. I've heard from a few different sources that he's pretty poor. I mean, has anybody actually seen him? I mean, how does he look? Is he a big guy? Is he small? Can he punch?
I've never seen him, mate. No, honestly.
Has he got a heartbeat?
He hasn't
He's got a funny hairdo.
in ages.
He's got a funny hairdo.
Who's he
That's
for?
good technical analysis. That he does have a very strange haircut, but no, he hasn't fought. He hasn't lost in. I'm sure I saw someone say he hasn't lost in 10 years, or something stupid like that. So a really long time. But he's fought. Like I said, he hasn't been in with anybody. Obviously, he's got a ranking, and that's why. I mean, as a lot of we talked about this. Was it the week before Christmas about Australian boxers and Southern Hemisphere fighters getting decent rankings based on these Pan-Pacific, Oceanic, Eurasia titles, but they're not actually that much cop. And I think he falls very much into that category. But as much as Hayes kept himself in shape, and I don't want the Ricky Hatton comparison's a silly one, but Hatton was out the ring for a similar amount of time. He came in against a guy who may have been a former world champion, but Senchenko is nothing. A very limited fighter who Kell Brook smashed to bits. And he was winning the fight, but he just struggled. He didn't look right. And 3 years the list of fighters who have made a successful comeback after 2 or 3 years is a very, very small one.
Yeah, I get the impression that it's not going to be this fight. Obviously, when we see what Hayes got left, this will be just to get rid of the ring rust, the sharpness, the timing, things like that. I'd say after a few rounds, he'll probably be bopping this guy at will. Judging, obviously, I haven't seen him, but judging from what I've heard, and he's obviously handpicked this opponent. He seems to be doing all the promotion himself, like you said, Paul. Whether it's on YouTube or terrestrial TV, I don't know. Any TV station worth their salt probably isn't touching him with a barge pole because of his history of not coming through with fights and stuff. So it's going to be really interesting to see exactly what he does with this guy. But more so, it's going to be the next fight after that, and the next fight, he's going to hopefully pick up a ranking or something. But we're looking at the fights down the line, aren't we? The Fury fight, maybe, hopefully, if Fury decides to fight him, which he probably won't. Joshua fight as well, after Joshua gets past Chisora, which we assume is going to be next year. So I think the heavyweight division is probably better with David Hay in it, although I'm not a Hay fan because of a lot of his out-of-the-ring antics. I think in the ring, if he can get fit, if he can get sharp, if he has anything like his former abilities before the layoff, then yeah, I think the heavyweight division will be better for it. But this fight, it's not going to tell us an awful lot, other than I think it's a lose-lose situation for Hay. If he looks terrible, that can impact him more than if he looks good, because they'll say, oh, we're supposed to knock this guy out or whatever. So a few interesting things, but I am glad to see Hay back, actually, as much as it pains me to say.
Just talking about the heavyweight division, I see purse bids deadline's the 21st of January for a European title between Robert Helenius and Derek Chisora. So obviously, not as a rematch from, well, Chisora won the first fight, I don't care what anybody says, but I don't know. I mean, Hellenius is a guy who's been overrated, been out injured, contractual problems, and you've got another guy, Del Boy, who, got to be honest, guys, I wouldn't say he's short yet, but he's close to it.
It's.
Well,
I think this fight has the potential to be absolutely horrific. How much has Chisora got left? I don't know. He's had a pretty tough career to this point. He hasn't looked particularly good in his last few fights. He's looked pretty terrible. In fact, that Box Nation fight that he had a couple of outings ago was one of the worst fights I've ever seen. And I just don't think he's got that much left. As for Hellenius, a guy I know from here was over in Estonia recently. There was a couple of Belfast lads on the card, as it happens, and Hellenius was fighting in the main event, and he just looked terrific in pretty much an exhibition by all accounts. So what he's got left is also questionable. I just think, Paul, this is just going to be a horrific fight stylistically. Two guys who are just well past their best.
thing is, though, I thought that Hellenius, Chisora won 10 rounds of the 12 when he fought Hellenius, but Hellenius was injured, and he was out for a while, and the Derek Chisora that beat Hellenius is not not that he was anything special, but he's certainly not the Derek Chisora that's there now. I think that he's slowed down a lot. I think that his ability to get inside of taller fighters, I just don't think he has it. I don't think his footwork will allow him to get close enough, because the reason why he dominated the fight so much was that he was slipping Hellenius' right hand and was landing clean with left hands, and that sort of slap, not insulting, but it looks like a slapping right hand that he does throw. He managed to get through frequently, but I don't think he'll be able to do it. I think it's a fight that makes total sense for Hellenius' people, because they know the controversy around the first one, and it'd be a case of, look, if they go and beat him a lot cleaner, it's a fairly easy route for Hellenius to get a European title, which will obviously get him a high ranking for a world title shot. And with the division being so wide open, it wouldn't surprise me if Hellenius was, fighting for a world title within 6 or 12 months if he gets this fight.
Now, in homage to Kurt, actually, I dare say he would actually appreciate me mentioning this. I don't know if he will, actually, because it's actually been revoked. But anyway, just go back to that Russia card, actually. Was it early November, I think it was? Duradola, the big guy that knocked out or stopped Kudryashov in the second round. You'll probably remember that he actually failed a drugs test according to the Russian anti-doping agency. Now, if you've actually been sleeping in a coma or something like that for the last few months, you'll probably have seen on the BBC website that Russia ruled in breach of the VADA code, that they were also one of 6 countries to breach the world anti-doping codes, agency codes. So you've got Russia, Argentina, Ukraine, Bolivia, Andorra, and Israel. I think have all been deemed to be non-compliant. Now, there was no mention as to what drugs it was. I don't recall. Probably some sort of steroid. But I think the people who then handled it, I think Vlada then came back and says that the Russian anti-doping agency was non-compliant with proper tests and procedures. So basically, if the guy had been cheating, he's just been given the fucking green light just to you're okay.
But I tell you what, if I'm a fighter fighting in Russia, I want my drug sample tested elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember a big dispute with Povetkin and Vladimir Klitschko at the time when that fight was happening in Russia. I remember there was an issue in regards to drug testing as well there.
I think for me, it's for 2 reasons. One, I don't trust the accuracy of what they're testing, and 2, if I'm an opponent and you've just beaten some Russian billionaire's golden boy, how trusting can you be that the wrong thing doesn't get put in the wrong sample? We had that whole thing the other week of a fighter not wanting. Was it the Klitschko fight with Fury refusing the water? I mean, we sort of thought. I thought at the time. I mean, obviously, I've been a critic of Tyson Fury, but I remember thinking how smart that was. I think if you're fighting on those sort of cards, I think it makes total sense. I think it was. I mean, Duradola put such a showing on, and it was when it came out. I know the Kudryashov fans on here were sort of very, very happy that it turned out that their boy had been beaten by a drug cheat. And I'll be honest, I pulled up the tweet after the fight, or I think just before the fight, I tweeted saying I wouldn't be shocked if Duradola was on drugs, because he had that physique about him. He looked that kind of shape of, previous cheats. But if they're saying that he wasn't, then you have to take it with a pinch of salt. You just can't trust anything that comes out of that country at the moment, unfortunately. And that's not just boxing; that's athletics, football, anything else. And I think the World Anti-Doping Agency people couldn't have put it any stronger that just don't trust anything that the Russians are doing on that side at the moment.
Mm.
The main thing is, I suppose. Sorry, Stephen, you go.
No, I was just going to say, Andy, I don't usually comment on the drug things, to be honest, because I have no knowledge on it. But it is starting to concern me. It really is. It's rife. I mean, everybody's talking about it now in boxing at the moment, and I think that it's coming. We're coming to a point where it's just that the whole thing's going to explode. I mean, how many people are on these things? Is a top level guy going to be caught with PEDs? Not a Tepper, not a Tony Thompson. I mean, I think this is could be one of the turning points in boxing. A top guy is soon, I think, is going to be caught definitively at their peak taking drugs. I know we've had Roy Jones, but Eric Morales, James Toney, all these guys at various stages. But I'm talking, if say a Mayweather fought Pacquiao and one of those guys definitively is on PEDs or whatever after the fight, then I think the sport, is in a major crisis point. Or the other thing that could happen is somebody dies after a bout. I mean, this isn't cycling, this isn't athletics. If you're taking drugs to actually go in the ring and then physically beat somebody, and then you kill somebody knowing you're on drugs. I mean, are we talking manslaughter here?
Fucking
it's
right,
as serious as that,
No, I mean, when we've talked about this in the past, when we've talked about what's an appropriate length for drug cheats, I think that if you are in this sport, like you just said, this sport and mixed martial arts is the same. Any sport where you're inflicting physical damage on an opponent, if you're there is a slight difference between taking the wrong drink mixture that you got out of a sports magazine and taking a human growth hormone or an anabolic steroid. If you're doing either of those things, then not only obviously you're putting yourself in danger, you're putting the life of someone else. That's why I've always said, for me, for certain classes of drugs, it has to be a lifetime ban. And like I said, and for me, if you kill someone in the ring or seriously injure them, like that's the Russian heavyweight, who is in the photos of that guy. Just you see the pictures, and it's all gone very quiet as it always does, but they're just crushing to look at. And I think if you did that damage to someone, then you've committed it's no different to who was the guy who had the gloves where they took the padding out.
Louis Resto.
Yeah, Louis Resto. It's no different to that to me. It's an assault. Boxing is a sport with very carefully governed rules. The minute you start tinkering with that, in that kind of environment, I think that you should have the book thrown at you. But I think Steve's right. I don't think it will be necessary that we'll get a huge name that gets caught. I think that a lot of sports have gone through this problem and seem to have got out the other side. I mean, Major League Baseball in America had a huge issue with steroids in the 90s. And it's still having problems now, but it does seem to have cleaned itself up. Why anyone still supports cycling, I don't know, because nothing you see in that sport is real. But I think it can cope with it. I just think maybe it does need, I saw Frank Warren, I think a few others talking about a universal.
Actually, I think it was in boxing scene just 2 days ago. Frank Warren, there's a problem.
Yeah, but then he mentioned about having sort of one body ruling it all. But the problem is, it's a sport that's based on what promoters are willing to invest as much as it's what the likes of Nevada State and the British Boxing Board. If promoters aren't willing or aren't capable of paying for drug testing, then it's not going to happen. And this isn't just drug testing within a fight period. This should be year round, like it is other sports. Jessica Ennis. 5 o'clock in the morning, she gets a knock on the door, and it's random drug testers. That's the kind of extensive program that they have in other sports. No one would pay for that in boxing. And if you take away the top level stuff, because we know it must go on at the top level, I go to, and Steve's the same, and I think you did, we all go to small hall shows, local venues, small arenas, British board shows, Malta shows. How easy must it be for these guys to take? Because no one's paying for that. No one's monitoring that. They'll be lucky if they get a drug test once a year. They go through their medicals and their brain scans, but no one's really looking at them. The drug test taking at lower level, I think, is probably more endemic than we'll see at the higher levels. And it's the cost of it as well. I mean, people were talking about, I read an article, I think it was on Scene Again, talking about the cost of performance-enhancing drugs. And while things like blood doping remain incredibly expensive, the amount of knockoff HDH and stuff coming out of China is so cheap that guys in gyms are using it, so fighters in gyms are using it.
Yeah, NFL have got a problem just now as well, by the looks of it. Just before I bring in our special guest, Paul, I just want to go back to something you were saying there about Tyson Fury refusing the water and stuff like that, which, I'm not saying it's paranoia and stuff like that, but I'll tell you one thing, you jog my memory a little bit. any remember the article about Mo Farah's trainer, is it Victor Salazar, being
Yes.
involved? Right, so I read his detailed response, and there was one, I forget the athlete's name, but there was a trainer who had a murky past or something, and there was allegations going about at the time that you could actually make someone fail a drug test if you just touched them. If you had some cream on your hand, you actually touched them on the back, it could then absorb into the skin, through the skin, into the bloodstream and stuff like that, and you could fail a positive drugs test. But Salazar then came back and says he actually used his own son in these tests and stuff, and says that it would be nigh near impossible without doing it, secretly or secrete it in any sort of way, because you would need so much stuff to actually do it. So I think that's maybe a myth going about just now, that you can actually do it by touching someone. But anyway, our special guest he's wanting to have a wee chat about this as well, and amongst many things, I suppose, you'll probably know him as a sexist, misogynist dinosaur that he actually is. He's been in my place before. He's been in my seat. No, well, not my seat as such, but he's been on a rival podcast who is some friends of ours and stuff, shall we say. But I've got the man himself, Big Sambo, Sam Shepherd. How you doing, son? Sam.
You gave him that big build-up. That's silence. Okay, I can fill in for him. Women don't deserve equal pay. What other things would he say? Things of that nature.
Sam?
I think he needs to unmute himself.
Yeah, possibly.
I think the Feminist League are currently spam botting our podcast right now.
Come on, Sam, I'll give you that intro, mate. It says I'm unmuted. Yeah, give him a second. Just while we'll give him a second anyway, someone's not happy about me using that athletics as an example. Shut the fuck up, you.
I just saw someone say that Yusuf Mack was killed in the ring.
Yeah, the Brun ring. Pretty brutal.
If you found out that it was all as rife as you thought it was, and the whole sport was completely riddled with drugs and pretty much everyone was armed, which some people do suspect, would it put your love of the sport in jeopardy? Would you be willing to quit boxing as a result of it?
It's a tough one, mate. I mean, you want to see, as you say, what happens if someone gets killed? I mean, that person who not only cheats, goes in the ring, who potentially could, even if he was clean, he could still kill another man. But you go in the ring fucking fully loaded, just so you can recover better, got better oxygen, better stamina, maybe a extra bit of power.
I don't. But we had this discussion before, and I think that Alex and Hater Dave and thought I was a bit naive about it. I don't think it's as endemic at the fights that we watch, the televised bouts of World Championship level. I don't think it's endemic. I really don't. I think that for a lot of reasons, I just think that fighters know that once, like Kid Galahad, rising up, getting through literally had an offer for a world title fight made from his promoter. He's 2 years on the sideline now. When he comes back after 2 years, is anyone going to be interested in someone like him? Don't know. I just think that the risk for certain fighters, for your big fighters who are pocketing millions, a ban, not only does it hit them in the pocket because they can't fight, it ruins their credibility and it ruins their potential future earnings. Why would fighters at a low championship level or British championship level take the risk? I know that some are, I'm not saying they aren't.
To get in the big leagues. So it's tough because it was the same with that cyclist, forget his name now, Rowe, I think his name was. He signed for Team Sky, he'd been doing great in the under-23s or the second tier teams or whatever it was. He took, I think it was EPO, fucking one of these races, gets signed up with Sky. The second he goes into the Sky team, they're hit for biological passports. First drug test, found to be fucking cheating in the past, sacked. 2-year ban.
I believe, I think it's Julian Williams, an up-and-coming boxer, has agreed to all year-round testing. I'm not sure of the ins and outs of it. I just heard that somewhere or read it somewhere.
Yeah, I remember
he's agreed to be tested year-round.
Danair did it year-round. I don't know if he still does. Ward did it for a bit. I'm trying to remember what other boxers have actually used VADA, actually, because...
Yeah, Danair does strike me as someone who's clean, because you get these guys and they move around the weight divisions and they seem to go up all these weight divisions, like sort of say a Manny Pacquiao or whatever, yet they seem to retain the athleticism and the power, and they even, some guys even who have been popped even seem to get more powerful, yet the likes of Daenerys, he seemed to lose his power as he moved up through the divisions, so he always struck me as someone who was clean. I'm sure that's one of the indicators of perhaps people who are juicing, they can sort of start banging people out later on in their career.
And I also think that some fighters may do it, but they'll do it for a time. So, there were lots of accusations thrown at Manny Pacquiao. I think when Manny Pacquiao fought Floyd Mayweather and when Manny Pacquiao fought the Bradley fight, I think he was completely clean. I don't doubt it. I don't really have any reason to. But there's something about what he did to, David Diaz, Ricky Hatton, the way he performed against Cotto, where his power just seemed, and speed just seemed endless. And like I said, I want to sit there and think it was because he achieved something that hardly any fighters have, and rise through the divisions, beating very good guys in the divisions, and not just beat them but knock them out. But the other side of me, the cynical side, the Alex Morris side, would lead me to think that's not physically doable. And that's why, but like I said, if it happens to the pinnacle guys in the sport, that's what kills it. When Usain Bolt beat Tyson Gay, that was a massive win for the sport, because if Usain Bolt was ever caught, that 100 meters would be over. As a sport, it'd be finished, because you've got the top two guys will be juicing. You almost need to believe or hope that the elite guys aren't cheating, and that's why I think the Mayweather thing was not brushed under the carpet, but people looked at it and went, well, there's nothing conclusive there, and they left it.
Sambo, you there? Sambo, he's trying. I shouldn't really call him Sambo. That's quite offensive to someone, eh?
No wonder Brian usurped him. He can't even log in.
He says he's trying. You can just imagine him leaning over a cliff trying to plug his mic into the back of the computer.
Oh, he's waving his phone up in the air trying to get a bit of signal. Oh dear, shocking.
Yeah, Andy, we had a question in on Facebook from Wes Shaw. Do you want me to read that out? Okay, it was a question for the pod from our friend Wes Shaw. He always sends in a question every week, and he says, can Warren and Box Nation be successful on the Sky pay-per-view platform? There's plenty of talent not associated with Matchroom out there, i.e. Fury, Hay, Groves, Eubank, Khan, Frampton, Haskins, etc. So with all that talent, can Warren and Box Nation be successful on the Sky pay-per-view platform? I mean, is he assuming, is this just a hypothetical question, or has there been talk?
There is talk, mate. I didn't watch all the interview between Frank Warren and his son George. I think they was basically responding in a bit more detail to what Eddie Hearn and Barry were saying about, how they've got exclusive right to the Sky content or whatever, and they can't go on pay-per-view without them involved or whatever. I really don't know. I can't remember bothered with the politics at all, but my understanding is they're either in talks or they're definitely allowed to take Box Nation on the Sky pay-per-view. I believe they might be in talks. I think George Warren's involved with it, I think. Is it good? No, well, I've said it before, pay-per-view. Unless it's for an elite fight with just really good undercard, or maybe a 2-3 fight undercard, it's solid fights, and that shouldn't be pay-per-view. Has Warren got fighters for pay-per-view? I don't know, unless he's going to put a show and it's going to bring on Fury onto it. I really don't know, but
with the demise of Box Nation, where would that leave Box Nation? Because if he's putting all his best fights on pay-per-view,
is it not a wee bit extra for Box Nation viewers, or is it an extra £2 or £3 or something like to watch on Box Nation?
Yeah, so what they're doing, I mean, I wrote an article about this, which you can read on instantboxing.com, shameless plug, which basically just tried to break down and explain the situation, because there's been so many back and forth interviews between Coogan with Eddie and with Frank, and I'm sure someone in the YouTube chat pulled us up on it that we haven't really talked about it. Frank, the plan for Box Nation is quite simple. If you're a Box Nation subscriber, what they're saying is that if an event is put on Sky Box Office, that's not Sky Sports Box Office, that's Sky Box Office, then you won't be paying for that event on top of your bill. They're trying to work out the mechanics of it, but let's just say the fight's $16.95, which is a fairly standard Sky price, that Box Nation customers what they were saying at the moment was they'd buy the fight and they'd be reimbursed from their subscription. That's what they were saying. Now, for me, that's quite a messy way of doing it. So I think when George Warren was asked about that, I think he was still probably working on what the best solution is. I think there's various ways around it, but I'm sure they'll be able to come up with something suitable. But they are wanting to use it's a bit of a PR coup for Warren, because Eddie has always said that they're the only people that can put fights on Sky Sports box office, but he's never really made that distinction between what Sky Sports box office is and what Sky box office is. So Warren is now in a position, as is any promoter really, if they've got a good enough product and Sky want to buy it and certainly market it as a box office event. Now, in my article, my only criticism was I think that Frank sees this, or his son sees this certainly, as right, this is going to be the quick fix now. Now we can get on pay-per-view. The big question mark, which hasn't been answered from any sides, is would Sky Sports be duty-bound to promote that event, considering it's not a Sky Sports event? It would be filmed by Box Nation cameras. It would be presented by the Box Nation team. Would we get a behind the gloves on Sky Sports 1? Would you get that week-long constant hype? Would you get the press conferences on Sky Sports News? That was the big question mark that was hanging over it, because it doesn't take much to put an event on pay-per-view, but being able to promote it and sell it is something that the Matchroom and Sky sort of partnership does very well. Also, the other issue is that the quantity of these shows. Now, in Frank's interview, he said that he didn't want to overpopulate the market with pay-per-view. And as an individual, he wouldn't be doing that. I mean, at most, you might be looking at, he may have said 3 a year, but I think 1 or 2 a year from Warren is an absolute maximum. But if you're adding that onto the 3, 4, 5 that Hearn's putting on, and potentially the 1 that you're going to get from Hennessy, or maybe 2 if Fury makes 2 fights this year, I jokingly put, and I say half jokingly, that we could be looking at nearly a pay-per-view every month, because in just the first half of this year, we're looking at the Hey Fury, that fight's never happening. The Fury Vlad rematch is 100% going to be pay-per-view, whether it's Sky Sports or box office. It will still be Sky pay-per-view. You've then got Quick Frampton is already announced as pay-per-view. Joshua's April the 9th fight will be pay-per-view, no matter who he's fighting. So you're already looking at, 3 before you start. Kell Brook, Amir Khan looks closer than ever. That would be June. So that would be 4 in the first 6 months of the year. And then realistically, you've got Anthony Joshua's December fight. It will be a December fight, as it probably always is now. We could be looking at, 6, 7, 8 pay-per-views if it goes over the top.
Sky want 8 a year, don't they? Do you think they don't trust Eddie to be able to come up with the 8 and they're drafting in from elsewhere? Or?
Well, no, because he can't. I mean, Eddie Hearn can't produce. Well, he could if he wants. I suppose he could make any old thing pay-per-view. But I think that the Anthony Joshua Dillian White has really kind of focused. The fight has really focused Sky, because they know that it's the amount of money they made from that show. I think it's changed the kind of fights they want to push on pay-per-view. I said that Callum Smith Rocky Fielding could have been made pay-per-view if they promoted it in the same way, because it has all the things that casuals like in a fight: a local rivalry, 2 Brits. More people will buy into that than a Brit against a European or a Russian or American world champion. But Warren, what's he got realistically? He's got Billy Joe Saunders. Now Billy Joe Saunders versus Gennady Golovkin, pay-per-view. If they made that fight, Billy Joe Saunders against Chris Eubank 2, pay-per-view. I mean, Chris Eubank Sr. thinks that Chris Eubank Jr. versus Blackwell should have been pay-per-view, so they know what they think of their own value. But Warren just doesn't have enough. It doesn't have a deep enough stable. The only thing that I like, I sound like I'm going on a bit here. The only thing I quite like about Warren's attitudes towards this is that he's pretty much said it would need to be an elite fight to justify pay-per-view. I couldn't see him putting on a British title fight as a pay-per-view event in this current climate, whereas Hearn can get away with doing that.
Sambo.
Hello.
Oh, there he is, the sexist misogynist dinosaur.
How
you doing? Happy New Year to you, bud.
Thank you. Thanks to you guys as well. I literally had to go into the fucking MS-DOS command file and reset my whole sound on the computer. But we're there now. Thanks very much.
There. No worries. What's happening?
Yeah. Not a lot. I actually had something briefly to say on the PED thing. Sorry, which I obviously would have tried to
Aye.
if I'd had the phone working. But I just wanted to say, it was going back to something Steve said about it'll be a high-profile incident, and maybe it will kind of change the mindset of the fans and the promoters. And I think that's right. I think there's a real image problem with PEDs in boxing, and it's kind of not viewed as serious a crime or as serious as it should be by a lot of fans. Whereas something like Resto or Margarito or someone loading their gloves is a really kind of provocative thing to do, and it's got a lot of connotations within the history of the sport and all this sort of thing. And something like that needs no kind of clarification. You won't find anyone in the sport who will defend, a guy putting plaster of Paris or whatever it is in his gloves. But I remember speaking to a guy. I've got a lot of question marks, and I'm aware that I've got no proof, but I have a lot of question marks around Sean Porter as someone who's potentially using things he shouldn't be. Because for the Devin Alexander fight, when he sort of came out of nowhere to win his belt, then the Paulie fight, and then the Kell Brook fight in 2000 and what was that last summer. Those three fights were all meant to have USADA. None of them did. And do you remember? I don't know if you guys remember Eddie Hearn talking about they were sort of trying to clarify the issue of drug testing, and the Porters were giving them kind of conflicting information. And I remember a video from Eddie Hearn about 2 weeks before that fight where they'd had no answer from the Porter team and from Heyman about the drug testing. Brook was, according to Eddie, Brook was doing it as normal over in the UK. They were just about to travel to the US, and they had no word from Eddie from the Team Porter side. And then suddenly this video pops up on YouTube of Kenny Porter saying he asked for VADA, Sean Porter's dad, but Eddie Hearn and Kell Brook turned it down. And Eddie just said it really set alarm bells off, because he was kind of contradicting himself in every interview about the issue. And I don't know if you guys remember the interview with Paulie as well, where Paulie had mentioned it as a red flag. They confronted him.
I remember. I'll just give you a feedback off you there, mate. Just mute.
Oh, sorry.
With regard to I remember the Malik Nagy comments, because I always felt like it was maybe Paulie being slightly a sore loser, because he was going to be, I've never felt power like that. Because you fought Miguel Cotto at a weight where he was basically one of the biggest punchers in the sport at one point. I remember, I just dug it up there just now, it's an article from Dan Raphael, ESPN, Porter Brook waiting for drug testing. Because when he's here to say, however, neither fighter has been tested as of last week. That was July 30th, whatever date the fight was, 16th of August, that's what it was. Golden Boy president Oscar De La Hoya and Porter were a bit confused about what was up with the testing when they spoke to the media on teleconference about the fight last week. This is quoting De La Hoya here. Well, the drug testing was handled through Golden Boy vice president Eric Gomez and through Al Heyman. There is a drug testing in place which the fighters should already have been taking and going through the process. Porter then went on to explain, well, boxing, you roll with the punches. I just know that we're supposed to be getting tested. Gomez then explained, in order to use USADA, they need at least 6 weeks to get all the required documents and testing done. When the date changed to August 16th, there wasn't enough time. We then collectively, Golden Boy, Brooks, promoter Matchroom, agreed to have California State Athletic Commission handle the testing. UCLA Olympic Analytical Laboratory, through the California Department of Consumer Affairs, will handle the testing for us. They start this week.
Yeah, it's nonsense, isn't it?
Gomez said the testing would include blood and urine, although he was unsure if it would follow up the exact protocol used by USADA.
Yeah, and in itself, that's a bit troubling, but it's not kind of it's not something to condemn Porter on just on that one fight, because things can happen where maybe documents aren't signed or misfiled or whatever, and then before you know it, the window is very small for the testing. Yeah. That's kind of more of a problem of the fact that there isn't, fighters don't test year round, and that's not Sean Porter's fault. But the thing that concerns me is the fact that exact same thing happened with the Paulie fight and the Devon fight. They were both supposed to be USADA, and I've got tweets off Paulie and Devon directly confirming this, where they both said, quote, it was supposed to happen, but it just never did. And then I was told it had fallen through a couple of weeks before the fight. 3 fights in a row, and the odds of that happening by accident through an innocent mistake for 3 fights in a row, when Sean Porter comes from nowhere to win a world title, it's just astronomically slim. And while I don't have proof, I am basically...
It begs the question. It
It
definitely
does.
begs the question.
And I regard boxers as innocent until proven guilty on drugs. I think you have to prove your innocence. I don't think it's safe to basically say, oh, well, he hasn't failed a test, so so he's not guilty, because it's so easy to avoid the test. And in football, Rio Ferdinand, he got 9-month ban for missing a test. And I think that's the way to go. I think if you miss a test, Serena Williams, Paul mentioned it earlier about the tennis. Serena Williams missed one random test, and that threw up major red flags. She claimed she thought it was an intruder.
In a panic room. What a load of shit.
Exactly. It's nonsense. And that was one test on one day, and she probably had a test later that week to make up for it. But you just think the precision with which they can cycle stuff in and out of their system, and it's why I've always been skeptical of Nadal. Always, because he's never consistently done testing for a sustained period in his career. And I know we haven't got the Americans on tonight, but I can't remember who it is who talks about is it Dave who always talks about Vlad being cycling on the roids and stuff? I think he's probably got a point. Maybe not with Vlad specifically, but I think a lot of fighters do that.
I wouldn't rule anything out whatsoever. I mean, I'm probably line myself along with Alex in that I believe that there are a very high percentage of elite athletes that they're using. I think NFL, which I've been watching closer this year, really has got a problem with HGH. Cycling is cleaned up somewhat, but there's new brand EPO coming on the market at all times and that as well. And as I say, they've got the biological passport, which you can never prove that someone's actually cheating with the biological passport until you've actually you've got a base parameter to kind of see where they're at over blood values and stuff like that. This thing with boxing though is a complete sham that you can test. That testing can only start sometimes like was it the Mayweather Berto fight 6 weeks before the fight? That's fucking pointless because there's guys cycling off fucking their gear at that point sometimes, maybe slightly before the fight. But if you know there's no getting any testing getting done, you think to yourself, well, okay, I can push this a wee bit extra couple of weeks,
I can remember as well, I think it was the Guerrero fight when in the 24/7 or something, Guerrero mentioned how the fight had been agreed quite a few weeks before it was ever announced and the contracts were signed. And he sort of thought, oh, maybe Floyd was going to duck out. And it was basically a few week delay between agreeing everything, setting it up with the TV dates, and then finalizing the contract and presumably the drug testing as well. And you just think the windows are always so specific with the really big fights like that. And it's just a shame that you don't, like you said, Julian Williams agreeing to do it 24/7 off his own back. And it's a shame you don't see more people like that. I think Provodnikov's one. I think he does 365.
Matisse did it, did he know?
And I'm sure there are plenty of guys who are completely clean and have never even thought about it. But you cannot give the benefit of the doubt to people because they haven't failed a test. I think the threshold has to be higher than that in terms of what we accept as proof of a clean athlete. Like guys will say to me, well, Porter's never failed a test, so as far as I'm concerned, he's
needed Lance Armstrong, apparently.
Exactly. It's nonsense. You can't. It's such an outdated sort of 1980s way to think about drug testing that, oh, well, if the test isn't positive, because if the test is positive, they'll just push the boundary of proof back a bit further and say, well, someone spiked it. Then you've got to prove that someone didn't spike it. Then you've got to prove that there isn't some crazy maniac in a lab who's got a grudge against, didn't Andre Berto say someone had spiked his sample? And then he was fighting again 6 months later.
Who was the Mayweather fight? Was it G. Leon Love? I think it was. I think he ended up popping testosterone epinephrine.
Rosado fight. It's a no contest.
20-1, I think it was. It was quite high anyway. And he says that his doctor gave him some tablets or whatever it was. But if his doctor, who's meant to be a medical professional, he should know that his client is actually a professional athlete. Should know that the drugs that he's giving them, or unless he's going to get some sort of kind of toupee or whatever it is. The other fight I was really kind of bugging. That actually went right out my head there. Actually, I was going to mention the TE ratio thing. I mean, that just basically allows people room for cheating. I don't know if it's still 5-1 in places like New York and Nevada, or 4-1, or whatever it was. But it was for a while anyway, and that's just opening things up. So guys with natural testosterone levels, right? Okay, you can accept that, but then we're all going to be like 1.1 testosterone ratios. So how the fuck does a guy who's struggling all of a sudden, like Peterson we're talking about here, right? He's fucking putting in there, was it 3.7.1 or whatever it was? I mean, the guys are clearly just fucking abusing the rules, regulations. I mean, if they can do it, they'll find it, and they will do it because there's smart people out there, especially with the drugs and stuff like that. The people who make the drugs are constantly ahead of drug testers at all times. I mean, one thing I'm surprised I've not even mentioned yet in the sport of boxing and stuff is stem cells. You know, I've heard guys in the UFC using it, but I've never heard people in boxing using stem cells.
I think the issue is, just to finish on this. I think Steve wants to go on to something else, but I know it's sort of easy to get bogged down in the science of it, and kind of, I know we all just want to see good fights at the end of the day, but the thing that has always sort of stuck in my head is the EPO thing. And I'm not a big guy on cycling. I'm not really a fan of it, but I sort of learned what EPO was in the last probably 18 months, 2 years, when the Armstrong stuff started to come out. And I know that they were using EPO back in the mid 90s, and you think, okay, they are basically 20 years ahead of me. And I'm a sports fan. I'm not a massive cycling fan, but I'm probably more clued up than the average guy on the street. And they're 20 years ahead of me in terms of what they know. And you just think, what are they doing now? Because they're going to be doing stuff now that is completely beyond our sort of comprehension, and probably won't come out for 10, 15 years. And I guess the only way to do it is to retrospectively test, free samples, retrospectively test them. But then what do? Do you all the fights from 2015, do they become no contests in 2030? I don't know.
Right. It's crazy because that's what they did with Tour de France for like 7 years. They just scored right out through the fucking rule book. Okay, that's a bit extreme because at the end of the day, someone still won those Tour de France. So what you do is, why don't you just put a wee asterisk next to it?
Yeah, exactly.
That type of thing.
And if everyone in the 100 metres final is on juice, then the winner is, it's a fair winner. Do you know what I mean? Like the one in Seoul when
Ben Johnson.
They said Carl Lewis was clean, but then it turned out basically everyone in that race was dirty at some stage. You just think, just give it to Ben Johnson because they are all cheating. So, Anyway.
Another thing is, if Usain Bolt's beating the likes of fucking Tyson Gay or whatever his name is, and Asufa Powell and all the guys and that, easily and stuff, I don't know, you wonder, you didn't want to come out and outright blame the guy, but it's just genetically, it's a freak that he can run that quick.
I think people like Bolt have to live with the fact that they have to constantly prove their innocence. That's just the burden of being an athlete, I believe. I think they should have to constantly prove to the fans and to the sponsors that they are clean. It should never be a case of innocent until proven guilty, because the odds are so far in favour of the millionaires who have access to the best scientists in the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't have a clue unless we can kind of hold them to a higher standard of proof.
Right, Steve, you back?
Yes.
Yes, he said very gingerly. Right, you want to try and get on with these year-end awards. I mean, we've got a couple of categories: Fight of the Year, Fighter of the Year, Knockout of the Year, Round of the Year, Upset of the Year, and Bellew of the Year. So, let's see. Now, I've got a big list of knockouts here, so I didn't expect you guys to remember every single one of them. So I'll just rattle through this list. Knockouts now. Swedish guy Oscar Island versus Varasdat Chernikov. That's from Sweden a couple of weeks back. First round knockout, left hook, fucking erased. Now some of these lists, some of these names here and stuff are some of them are club fighters. Okay, now it's been a poor year 2015 for boxing. Let's just cut through it. I mean, Mayweather, Pacquiao, shit. We didn't get Quigg Frampton, we didn't get Kovalev, Stevenson, so, we kind of got some good fights towards the end of the year and stuff, which we can be grateful for. But the other list is Lucas Brown against Julius Long, Roy Jones against Eric Watkins, Anthony Russell versus Harold Reyes, Francisco Santana against Kendall Menya, Tyrone Spong versus Gabor Franks, Andrew Tabite against Thomas Hanshaw, Christoph Golatsky against Marco Hook, Mares Bredis versus Manuel Char, that was a good knockout. Izio Ugiono versus Will Quarry. Didn't ask me to repeat that.
You're making some of these up.
Courtney Blocker versus Dominic Good.
Courtney Blocker?
Yeah, that was apparently a good knockout. Saul Alvarez against James Cutland. I didn't really want to add this one in here. Erkin Tepper against David Price.
No. Void.
We should actually, we should help rejuvenate Big Price's career and just refuse that one. You like this one, Paul? Mitchell Smith against Antonio Horvath.
Oh, that gave me the horn, that one.
Enzo Marcanelli against Roy Jones.
That gave me even bigger horn.
Peter Quillen against Michael Zarafa. That was evil. I fight should never have happened. Danny Jacobs against Peter Quillen. Anthony Joshua against Dylan White. Adrian Granados against Amir Imam. Erickson Lubon against Alexis Camacho. I get feedback of somebody here. Yeah, it's okay. And we've got Gabriel Bracero against Danny O'Connor.
Yeah.
And Yenfield Vicente against Juan Dominguez.
You missed off the Knockout King, Andy. Did any of you see Randall Bailey's knockout from Korea a couple of months ago?
Oh, aye. I remember that one.
That was beautiful.
8th round.
My addition. Yeah, he just goes flat on his back like he's sunbathing. It's great.
Right, so there's 4 of us, so we need to get a majority vote of some sort. So I'm going to go right on the line. I'm going to go for Gabriel Bracero against Danny O'Connor.
Yeah, I agree with you. You saved the best for last. I thought that was an excellent knockout. And I like the commentary as well, because I think they'd fought before and Bracero had maybe won a decision. And at the beginning, the first 40 seconds or so, because it was very early in the first round, I think Bracero knocked him out. The commentary was saying, Danny O'Connor, he's been in a big training camp and he's been saying he's learnt mistakes from the first fight and he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Bang! And he was out cold, and then that was all out the window. It was a brilliant knockout.
Barry can't punch, can he, at all?
No.
Barely got any, and there were shamrocks like all over the place, like hanging from the rafters, and he just gets chinned in 30 seconds. I'm happy to go with that.
Whenever I think of knockout, I know this is meant to be an in-depth discussion, but I'm going to pick exactly that's who I was going to pick as well. I mean, when I think of my knockouts of the year, and I was looking back at other ones that I've picked, for me, a knockout of the year has to be. It's not usually from a combination shot or late in a fight. I think it's a single punch early, just because it's the shock factor of it, and like I said, there's just nothing cleaner than seeing someone get taken out with a single shot. I mean, I look back at older ones when Adonis Stevenson, Chad Dawson. Even though Dawson got back up, that was still my knockout of the year, just because of the shot that landed. Sergio Martinez, Paul Williams. You know, all these were early, first round, second round. Bracero, first round. I just think there's something that's extra shocking about it. I mean, there's been some really good ones, but a lot of them, I mean, Mitchell Smith's was just stunning, but who was he in with? Roy Jones is, I have to say, fantastic knockout, but he was in with no one. I mean, Enzo Maccarinelli beating Roy Jones again. You know, there weren't really billed as competitive matchups. I think Bracero Connor stood out because it was meant to be competitive, or it should have been competitive. Certainly, it was meant to be in favour of Connor. And it was just a beautiful shot, and it just absolutely cleaned him out.
Sorry, Andy, just very quickly. I never know with knockouts whether you're supposed to take into account, like Paul said, are you supposed to take into account the level of the opponent, the magnitude of the event, the kind of, maybe the ebb and flow of the fight up to that point? Because I thought that the Glowacki-Huck KO was brilliant, because it had been such a sort of back and forth like battle, and then out of nowhere, when you think Huck's getting the upper hand, he gets like 3 completely clean punches down his pipe, and it completely turned the whole thing on its head.
Do you know what? Do you not think though that, like I said, this is why a lot of people gave KO of the year to Canelo Kirkland, because it's a bigger main event fight on American TV. It's not an obscure 6-rounder on a Box Nation undercard, or it's not the Swedish guy fighting for a WBO Intercontinental belt. You know, like I said, is it the KO of the year? But like I said, based on the size of the event, does that have to be taken into account? Because Canelo's knockout of Kirkland was sensational, but it wasn't from an on the eye KO point of view. It wasn't more impressive to watch than about 10 of the ones that Tommy rattled off there.
I think it's subjective, to be honest. Whatever you like, different people like different things, don't they? So I would just say pick whatever you want, Paul. Don't be constrained.
Yeah, but I think it's unanimous anyway. So, congratulations. Right, fight of the year. Now, as I say, this list isn't exhaustive or anything like that. So, if I miss anything out and you get all hot and bothered and start abusing us on Twitter and stuff like that, guess what? We don't give a fuck, because we do our best. But fight of the year, I've got a couple here. Now, Glowacki against Huck, obviously. Donaire against Juarez. Vargas against Maura. Kono against Kameda. Fanfara against Cleverly. Pascal against Gonzalez. Linares against Mitchell. And Matisse against Provodnikov is the ones that I can think of. Maybe even DeGale Darrell, maybe. Mabute.
No.
You know,
It's a
I've seen some
stretch.
people tout that. I've seen some people tout those two fights.
Did you say Hook and Gluaski, yeah?
Yeah, I've seen that. I said that one, my eye.
Salido against Martinez was a pretty good fight. I think it
Yeah.
ended in a draw. Yeah, Clev Fonfara was a good one. Miura Vargas for me, I think, by a long... Well, not by a long stretch, because Hook was good too, but Miura Vargas for me.
I agree with Steve, and partly because for once I actually predicted how a fight would play out correctly. And the day that was announced, I said this is probably going to be fight of the year. You just knew it was going to be dynamite, like the way those two, the way the styles would gel, and it was absolutely fantastic. And the ending, it was back and forth. You've got the fast start from Vargas, then you've got the momentum shift. Miura puts him down. His eyes a mess. It's got that like slug of blood under his eye, and then just as you think, okay, Vargas is done, the fight's going to end, he comes right out, lands a miracle punch, and it had everything. It had fantastic boxing in parts. It had huge punches, and I think if that had been a headliner, I don't think there'd really be any debate. It's a shame it was hidden away on an undercard.
I've sort of tend to agree, but like I said, it just goes to show really how poor. I kept thinking that 2015 hasn't actually been that bad. We've had some mega events, but in terms of quality of main event fights or quality of fights in general, I just think it's just been a poor year. I think that, again, I've sort of fallen in line with you guys. I think the fight I enjoyed the most watching, because it sort of suits what I look for in a good fight, was Cleverly Fonfara. Just seeing two guys just punch non-stop for 12 rounds, seeing Cleverly kind of almost sort of lose the plot, but in a good way, like he just bit down. He couldn't have been more opposite to his performance against Tony Bellew, and it was good to see him fight in the way that he can fight. Obviously, it lacked the drama, I suppose, and the knockdowns, but I thought that was a very enjoyable fight to watch. But there's been very few, and I think that main event fights across the board. We're talking about the fight of the year being a chief. Was it Chief Support or the second fight in on that card? The big ones let us down this year, so that's why the fights are quite obscure. I think that from the UK, I don't think there's been many I mean, I suppose you could probably give a nod. Kevin Mitchell, Linares. That was to be fair, that was a really good scrap.
You banked versus Tony Jeter.
Yeah, Eubank Jetta was a stunner. Jetta was well in that fight. He just needed to get second round. It would have turned around, but he didn't quite manage to get there, did he? So.
I've got a good one to throw in, actually, Andy. Do you remember, for sheer novelty value, Edwin Rodriguez against Michael Seals? Did anyone see that? And the funny gifs that were coming out of that fight as well, Rodriguez sort of bobbing all over the place.
Maybe he got knocked down, looked like he was diving for the fucking bottom end of the swimming pool. It was tremendous.
Yeah, that was a fun fight. I enjoyed that. It was a fun fight.
The guys at Queensberry Rules, they voted that round of the year, that first round, and it was actually fantastic. 4 knockdowns or something. Crazy.
Yeah, definitely. So, Paul, just so we get it right, you going for Mauro Vargas for fight of the year?
Yeah, as much as, like I said, it'd be good to have a bit of a discussion. I think it just stands out above it. The others you listed, I was trying to think of anything you may have missed, and
can I give a shout out for a bit of an odd choice, but you might agree, is Quillin versus Andy Lee, which I thought I was right on the edge of my seat throughout that fight, and it's probably the only fight ever that ended in a draw that I've watched again and actually enjoyed, and it's not been like a controversial, although I did think Andy Lee was a little bit lucky, but I really enjoyed that as a tactical fight. I thought that was really, really interesting.
I think any fight that involves a fighter that has the ability to just turn it so quickly, that's why I think Andy Lee is generally an entertaining guy to watch, because he could be losing 7 rounds in a row and then he'll knock the guy out. And there are only a handful of fighters who can do that. I mean, that's why obviously the likes of Gennady Golovkin, and so not that he loses rounds, but he has the ability to just switch it on there and then, and that's because there's so few of them. I think Lee Quillin, and I mean obviously Quillin had a bit of a disaster towards the end of the year, but I think that was a really, really good scrap. I think that fight showed Quillin's limitations as much as it showed anything about Andy Lee.
Right, now try to see who else is up next. I think it's Fighter of the Year. Am I right? Well, rather than just read out the list, I think I'm really going to say Tyson Fury. Going to be Fighter of the Year. I mean, you could say Floyd Mayweather for finally closing the book on the Manny Pacquiao situation, if it is finally closed, but we could also say in hindsight that it was two aging fighters. I think the fact is you've got a guy who has went into away territory against a dominant champion over a decade, universally recognised as the man, goes in there and basically bosses the fight. And I know Paul's not going to sit well with you, mate, but I think it's got to be Tyson Fury.
I mean, like I said, I struggle. I don't struggle to give it to. I mean, Fury's definitely in the conversation. I think there's very few fighters that are. From most people seem to be split between two trains of thought. One is that Floyd Mayweather won conclusively, and we're talking conclusively, the biggest fight from a size commercial standpoint of all time. And he won it at a breeze. I mean, I watched the fight back, I think I said the other day, just before Christmas. I think Sky showed it. And it wasn't as bad as I remember. I was one of those who defended it, but deep down I was defending something that I knew wasn't that entertaining after the fight had happened. It wasn't that it was that bad. It just was that Floyd just won it at such a canter, and he won it with such ease. His fight against Berto doesn't really add much to that Fighter of the Year resume, but he won the biggest fight of all time. That has to put him right up there.
Does Fury versus Christian Hammer add much to his resume? Do you know what I mean? Sorry, I'm agreeing with you. I think like the candidates all have basically one big win, and then one or two sort of, take it or leave it.
Kind of put Gonzalez on that list then, because
because he was, like I say, you're looking for big. And so the likes of Gonzalez and Golovkin could certainly make a case, fighting frequently, fighting decent guys, but neither of them beat sort of an elite fighter. I think that the other one that we've not mentioned is Canelo.
Canelo, yeah, I was going to say him.
Because, I mean, he's
Andy, you're not digging that one though, are you, Andy?
What's that, mate?
Canelo, you're not going for Canelo. I saw someone suggesting
Fury.
that.
I'm going for Fury. I mean, okay, Canelo, beat Cutland, but we all knew it was going to be probably a shootout. But then again, Cutland goes MIA, for how many months a year and stuff like that. There was worry. I remember worried at some point that fight might not even happen. Then he then fights Cotto at a weight that's 155 catch weight and stuff like that. I mean, things like that I can't fucking give browning points for it. I know he's starting this pish with Golovkin and stuff. I can't even put Golovkin in this Fighter of the Year. I'm a big fan of Golovkin. I'm a big fan of Kovalev. I'm a big fan of Gonzalez, but I just don't think any of them have done what. I mean, I would have no problems giving it to Canelo if he had beaten maybe, say, someone like Martinez, who was probably still somewhat in his prime. Cotto's not a middleweight, man, so I can't see how I can get to Canelo.
Yeah, but that's why, like I said, the catchweight situation for the middleweight title annoyed me, but not the fight, because neither Canelo or Miguel Cotto are middleweights. So I never felt that it was unfair on either fighter.
What's most significant though?
Canelo has not been like middleweight for over 2 years.
What was most significant though?
He is a middleweight.
Wait, what was most significant? Tyson Fury beating Klitschko or Canelo beating Cotto? Both of them titles. What was most significant?
Fury, Klitschko by a mile.
There you go. Yeah. I think that says it all.
But there's also, like I said, the argument that the Fury.
You didn't want to give Fury credit.
No, like I said, Fury's number two. I literally my top three, which I will get to now. Floyd Mayweather, number one. You have to give it to Tyson Fury based on the achievement of that fight alone. Even if the fight was, even if in my opinion he beat an incredibly he beat a guy who landed 50 punches in 12 rounds. A guy who didn't throw a right hand till landed the right hand to the 11th round. Not because Tyson Fury was some defensive genius, just because Klitschko wasn't throwing that shot for whatever reason. And I think that I'm tempted to put Canelo at 3 above Gonzalez or Golovkin based on the fact that in big main event in big fights he came out on top on both occasions, even though Kirkland is we all know what Kirkland's about, but he did beat Cotto. And I think Canelo, the defining year for his career will be 2016. But Floyd, for me, on Floyd he beat Manny Pacquiao in the biggest fight of all time, and he won it, and he did it with ease.
I'll be embarrassed. Steve.
Sorry, Andy.
Yeah, I can see the Floyd argument. I can see the Fury argument. It's a difficult one that we don't have so many a few more names. I mean, you know, people looking at your Canelos, your Terence Crawfords, and your Kovalevs. No one's really having these stellar years either when they're getting
No.
3 or 4 real quality wins in a year. So I think Fury, the magnitude of the victory, I didn't expect him to win. I thought he would go the distance but lose on points. And shout out to Peter Fury. I'm sure we're doing a train of the year later, so I'll leave that to one side. But yeah, I'll go for Tyson Fury, I think. But I wouldn't argue with Floyd either. But Fury for me.
That's 2-1, Sam. You may have the deciding vote here.
Well, I'm pretty much in agreement with Paul, I think.
Oh, fuck.
I just don't think you can look past winning 9 rounds against Pacquiao. I think that's better than winning 9 rounds against Klitschko, and I think that's better than winning 9 rounds against Cotto, considering all 3 of those opponents are arguably past their best. But if Cotto and Pacquiao had fought this year, I think I probably would have picked Pacquiao, to be honest, still. I think he'd still beat him. Pacquiao, you know, Tim Bradley's still a great fighter. Pacquiao dominated him not that long ago. I think people are they're delighted with how the result of the Klitschko-Fury fight, and rightly so, and they are still a bit, not bitter, but a bit underwhelmed and a bit kind of disappointed by the result of Mayweather-Pacquiao. And I wanted Pacquiao to win as much as anyone else, but I was going to say, if we have a sort of side category for kind of performance of the year, I would give it to Mayweather when in that first round when he came out. And I thought Pacquiao would try and start quickly and put it on him. And Floyd was unbelievably good in the first round. And I sort of sat back in my chair with a load of friends who don't watch much boxing and sort of sank about, you know, a few inches down into the seat. And I thought, okay, he's going to need a miracle to win this fight. I think Floyd was unbelievable. The Berto thing is irrelevant, really, just like I think Kirkland's largely irrelevant. I think Christian Hammer's irrelevant. I think you have to give it to Floyd because he won the biggest fight of all time easily.
Steve, does it look like I have to give out a joint award here?
Possibly.
So it's a joint award. We had more guys on, so could do an odd number here, but
it pains you, doesn't it? It pains you to say that Floyd Mayweather is the Boxing Asylum's joint fighter of the year.
Ask the chat to decide.
Right. Okay.
Who is it?
Right.
Floyd or Fury?
We'll need to let this. Right. Just let them listen. Well, they're listening to us now actually, so just kind of we'll keep chatting now until we get someone picking it up, because obviously there'll be a 20-second delay in them listening to us just now. So while we're doing that, I'll just get that ready for tweeting out.
I was going to say, you know how we all hate those stupid tweet surveys. Well, this is actually one that might actually be quite useful. Fighter of the year, Floyd Mayweather or Tyson Fury. I think, do you know what?
Fury's got one vote so far. Come on, guys! I want you to fucking
close the poll.
Fury, Fury. After it's got 3. Fury again. Well done, gentlemen.
That'll be Michael.
Can I just say
boxing fanatic?
A brief shout out for the PBC fighter of the year, Keith Thurman. I wonder how many people voted on that. Honestly,
I sure
that he was nominated. I thought it was a joke because I was like, what? Like he's been in negotiations for half the year. What's going on? And he won it. Mental, absolutely mental.
He sits in his contract out, isn't he, Thurman? I think he wants out.
Oh, you think so? Really? What? Delaying?
Yeah, I do.
What? So the Porter one's maybe his last fight with them.
Possibly, yeah. I think he's got the hump with Uncle Al. I think he wants out. I think a few of them are starting to get the hump.
He could go to HBO, couldn't he? They've got some people to fight over there, I suppose.
He's not. I don't think he's getting the money that he thinks that others are. I think there are a lot of guys earning. The Robert Guerreros of this world seem to be just pocketing big paychecks, and he must be sat there wondering why he isn't earning more. And he sees obviously what Tim Bradley is getting paid over at HBO, and I think he probably wants a piece of that.
Right.
The Porters have said that as well. They've said that they need to fight more often because they're not on the Garcia money. That's a quote.
Right. So Tyson Fury gets thanks to listeners because they actually kind of basically pushed that one through. That is Tyson Fury as the fighter of the year. Congratulations, Tyson.
The people have spoken.
Thanks very much for that. Just looking for something else here now. Round of the year.
Maybe that should have been the Rodriguez Seals one that we were talking about earlier, actually.
Well, what about round 12 again, Danito against Juarez? That was a really good round.
Yep, it was.
Nothing really sticking out for you guys?
9 of Mira Vargas, the last round, the 9th round when it ended.
What about Jacobs Maurer, first round?
Joshua White round 2. I know that you're going to poo-poo it, but that got everyone out their seat. Joshua was knocking the life out of the guy, and then he just got caught, and you just saw that moment when he's like, look, his body froze, and then he grabbed White. I think that was for sort of jump up and down moment. I thought that round 2 was, when then watching a still stunned Dillian White trying to get his punches off, and you watch it back and some of them were so crude, sort of like early Deontay Wilder style punches, but he had his man hurt, and I thought that was a cracking round.
It was, Paul, and if you include the minute of the end of round 1 onto that second round as well, when everybody was jumping into the ring, I mean, that 4 minutes was brilliant all round entertainment wise.
Can I give a quick shout out for Joshua versus Gavin round 4 when he finally unfolded the defensive puzzle? That was beautiful to see.
The sensational Jason Gavin. So I'm trying to think. I mean, I think for me it's going to be a toss up between Seals and Rodriguez. Round 1, I think it was 3 knockdowns, and round 12, Daenerys against Juarez. That was a fucking brilliant fight. So I'm going to go for.
Oh, Andy, I mean, there are a couple of good rounds in Kovalev Pascal, just thinking about it.
I rewatched that fight last night, mate, actually, believe it or not. And,
there were a couple of good exchanges, weren't there? Like round 4 or something, when Pascal actually hit him a few times and they were trading a bit.
What I will say is, Kovalev ate up a lot of right hands there, and I was actually counter straight right hands as well. So I started kind of have a quick think to myself about it as well. He's susceptible to body shots as well, Kovalev, but still think he's the best fighter at 175. But I'm going to go for Rodriguez against Seals. Simple fact is there were knockdowns in the first round and stuff, and it was pretty wild. With yourself, Sam?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was 4 knockdowns, 2 of which were heavy, where the guy got up on like jelly legs, and there were numerous momentum shifts. Not the highest level fight, but a fantastic, exactly the sort of thing you want if you're. I think it was on a Friday night as well. Reminded me of the good old days on.
Yeah. Paul.
He's muted, I think.
Oh, sorry, trying to unmute myself then. What was that again? Sorry, mate, I was trying to get myself off mute.
Your round of the year.
Yeah, Seals, mate. It was that was just a mental round. I mean, like I said, Joshua White is probably one of my personal favourites, but round of the year, it has to be about the maximum amount of action packed into 3 minutes, and that round was just mental. That round 1.
Also, sorry, the other one. Sorry to interrupt you again, Steve. Keep doing it. But Jacobs versus Sergio Mora, the round 1 when they both went down. That was a pretty good one as well, because especially with Mora not being a big puncher and Jacobs.
I mentioned that one.
Yeah, that was a good one. Andy said that one. Yeah. Rodriguez for me definitely. He's only 1 win. It reminded me of a Carl Thompson fight, like the Ezra Sellers fight, but all packed into one round.
That's a great fight. That Ezra Sellers one.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Rodriguez.
So, the winner of round of the year goes to Edwin Rodriguez against Michael Seal, round 1. Congratulations on that one. Tweet this out here. We miss Alex not being here now.
You're trying to do your multitasking skills there.
Oh, man, that's fucking tremendous.
Are you doing a prospect of the year or anything like that?
Yeah, I've got upset of the year coming up just now. So, upset of the year. Well, it's got to be Fury against Klitschko.
No, I can't have him win every friggin' award.
Why not? That's just.
Let's try and get him to win 3, so he become triple crown.
You can't be racist though.
No.
Kind of be racist.
I'm going for the whole 9 yards here.
Right, okay, Luke Campbell against Yvonne Mendy.
Yeah, if we're talking proper upset, again, this goes back to Shep's point earlier about the knockout. If you're talking proper upset, you've got Renaud Garrido going in at whatever he was with Saunders going in a 40-1 favourite.
That was the from gambling by a mile.
Yeah, from an odds point of view, and then Garrido went and beat the snot out of him. Saunders broke both hands, and then Garrido basically got butted to get kicked out of the fight. I mean, Duradola beating Kudryashov, that was a huge upset.
Yeah,
again,
true.
From an odds point of view.
Granados against Imam.
Big one.
I think those were like 3 of the top sort of 4 or 5 from a bookmaker's point of view in terms of a mass upset. But again, I mean, Fury, it certainly was a shock, but he was only, what was he, 4 to 3-1 to win the fight. I mean, I think he got quite close in the end. It was closer than the majority of Klitschko's fights were from an odds point of view, but I suppose for the level of fight it was, yeah, as a lot of people, including myself, obviously didn't think he had a chance of winning. To go and win, and not only win but win so comfortably, I think that has to be up there. But I did enjoy that mentalist Ronald Garrido's performance against Saunders.
Yeah.
Can I also just do a shout out for that Box Nation one? Was it Pettit against that journeyman guy? Do you remember that one? But that was on the Buglioni undercard, I think. Against
Oh yeah, who was he fighting?
I'll never remember the other guy's name, but I remember that was good odds on that. It was about 25-1 on to win that fight, and it was pretty good odds.
Would you class the Mitchell Smith recent one against that Jupp guy to be an upset, or does anybody care?
Nah, I don't think so.
Paul called it. Genius. Yeah.
It's what you get when you fight a division above where you need to be because you can't be bothered to train to make weight.
I mean, I don't suppose it's sorry.
Been on the piss all Christmas as well, Mitchell Smith.
I don't suppose it's an upset, but did Gale going to America and beating Darrell? Was that an upset?
Maybe a performance of the year.
I think a lot of people talked about. You know, you mentioned earlier about that as being a fight of the year. Again, I watched that not long ago, and it wasn't that great. I think that from the round, obviously, when DeGale put him over, I thought DeGale did look impressive in that fight, and he looked impressive against Butte. But I don't think that it didn't really stick out for me. And certainly as an upset, weren't they evens going into that as well? I'm sure.
Really close. Really.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, I remember saying, like I said, I going into it, I wouldn't even want to guess how that fight will go out. Two southpaws who fight in very similar styles. It was very hard to predict, but it wasn't a mass upset.
Could have been worse. Could have been worse, that one.
Carson Jones doing Brian Rose in a round. That was pretty big.
Yeah.
Was that last year? Losing track of time.
I think it was like January, February, I think.
Oh, right.
I've remembered a couple. Devin Alexander getting beat off that guy Martinez.
Yeah, that was a big one. But I called that because I did say I thought that was not because of the guy was any good or I knew much about him. It was just that Devin is fantastic at losing rounds. He has an incredible knack of giving away rounds without seeming to do all that much wrong. And he got absolutely schooled in that fight.
And if he'd beaten Guerrero, that would have been a big upset as well for Martinez as well.
Badou Jack against Anthony Darrell, and maybe the first fight between Jamie McDonnell and Tomoki Kameda.
Yeah, I didn't give him much of a chance, I'll admit.
So, Sam, who are you picking?
I think it's got to be Saunders Garrido, just for the odds, for the disgusting way in which Saunders quit, and for Eddie Hearn's face in the post-fight interview. It's a triple whammy.
Do
Paul.
you know what? I'm gonna give it to even Mendy because as much as Saunders deserved to lose that fight, I thought he did. His hands were absolutely shredded, and he got to that point in the fight where he had to. He chose to throw a headbutt because he couldn't throw his hands anymore. Whereas Luke Campbell wasn't injured; he was perfectly fine, and he got beat off a guy who I don't think anyone expected. Everyone was thinking what an easy fight it'd be for Campbell, despite Hearn trying to say, "Oh look, I warned you, it'd be tough." It wasn't meant to be tough. It was meant to be straightforward. So I'll go with that.
Steve.
I'm going to go the obvious, Tyson Fury against Klitschko. I think just keep it simple. I didn't expect him to win, and it was just the magnitude of it as well.
Yeah, I'm in agreement, mate. I've got to say the same. Tyson Fury beating Vladimir Klitschko.
So praise for Fury.
That's 2 prizes so far tonight. Well done, big man.
Well done.
Right, that's for upset of the year. Right. What was other
Prospect of the year?
prospect of the year? Okay, Sam, what you got?
You put me on the spot now. I suppose you've got to give it to Errol Spence, really. I mean, everyone knows him now, don't they? He still hasn't got a big win, but he's put himself right in the conversation as being kind of worthy of fighting any of the top guys. And the fact that no one seems to be willing to fight him says a lot. I thought the Van Heerden fight was very impressive, the way he really, really beat him up. And he was, I think he was a potential Brook opponent at one point. a decent sort of rank contender, and I don't think Spence lost a minute of a round. I'd probably say him. I'm pretty excited about how far he can go.
So I've got a list here actually. I've got Errol Spence, Felix Verdejo, Artur Beterbiev, Anthony Joshua, Jesse Magdaleno, Callum Smith, Gilberto Ramirez, Oscar Valdez, Luke Campbell, and Egidijus Kavalauskas. So
Luke Campbell.
yeah, this was a list done before.
That was done in the summer, I bet. Before Verdejo's been injured for 6 months.
Yeah. So
I'd be tempted to go. I mean, like I said, last year I said Verdejo, but I'm starting to not be quite so sure about him. I remember watching him when
he's a great fighter.
Yeah. No, I agree.
If his hands hold up, he will be a great fighter.
Well, that's the question mark. I remember I watched him when he dismantled Alcantara in 21 seconds, and I just thought, Christ, this guy has it all: speed, power, movement. But I don't know, the stories you hear about the hands, about the problems he has during the fight, I think he may find he comes unstuck at a certain level, purely, not necessarily based on his lack of ability, but just on whether he has the physical attributes to carry himself through a potentially difficult 12-round fight. But I have to admit, I was very, very high on him last year. I've not stopped being high on him. It's just I expected a lot more from 2015. I think for me, as much as sometimes these guys do come undone, as we've seen with Mr. Kudryashov, I'd have to give it to Alexander Usyk. Obviously 9-0.
He needs a step up though. He's at that stage. He's beating these guys who are probably D-level operators. I see this guy getting a lot of hype, and I've seen a lot of his fights and stuff, and I'm still waiting for I really don't know what it is, but he needs a top opponent at some point.
I think when I look at prospect of the year, like I said, for me, Errol Spence is no longer a prospect. I think he's there. Like it's just a case of waiting for someone to defend the belt against him. I think that what I like about Usyk, and there's been a lot of good potential good cruiserweights come through, his size, his stance, his style, the power he puts in, and I mean he's obviously been fighting, limited opposition to be polite, but I think there's a lot of things about him that tell me that there's something there. And also, unlike a lot of these prospects that we're getting through from the Eastern Bloc, he's not all that old. I mean, he's still in his 20s. A lot of these guys, we're hearing about them when they're 33, 34, and they're having to hurry their careers. I think he's got plenty of time on his side. I think he's in a division where it's easy enough to win a belt. You could see him winning a world title in 2016, but that's who I'm going to lean with, just because for me, prospect is about potential. And I think he potentially could be a very good world champion this year.
Okay, so you voting for who?
In that case, I'll change my vote, Paul. If we can't have Spence, if we say he's a contender now, not a prospect, I'm going to go Sal Rodriguez. And if you, he's the guy who, do you remember Ivan Nahara, who fought Verdejo's debut? That guy with the crazy tattoos on HBO. He went 10 rounds.
Yes, I know who you mean.
Sal Rodriguez just knocked him out in a round about 3 weeks ago. He looked fantastic. And he might be fighting. He's top rank as well. He might fight Verdejo next year. That's my pick.
So who's your pick, mate? Sam.
Oh,
Sal Rodriguez.
Sal Rodriguez. Paul, who were you?
I'm going for Usyk.
Steve.
Well, I'm not going to count Spence. I'm not really sure he's a prospect, and he gets hit a bit much for my liking, so I'm not really that sold on him. Verdejo, I'm not sure if he's going to become more Felix Trinidad or Juan Manuel Lopez at the moment. Jury's out on him as well. I like the look of Usyk, as Paul mentioned, but I'm going to go for Julian Williams. He hasn't fought the highest level of opposition this year, but I like what I see, and I think he's going to be a good prospect. And also, quick mention to my old mate, I know he's not much of a prospect, he's about 50 years old, Luis Ortiz. I used to mention him on the pod quite a lot. It was tongue-in-cheek, much of it, but I liked his skills. But the way he dealt with Bryant Jennings, he's gone from prospect to contender now, and I'm liking the look of him. But Julian Williams for me, J-Rock.
As long as he stays clean, though.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right, well, I'm not picking any of the three names that you guys have picked, so how are we going to work this one? You're going to give me the cast and vote?
We'll do a poll, mate. We can do a four-way poll.
Oh, we could do a poll, aye, right, okay. So
loves a poll. Shep loves a poll.
I do, mate.
Right, well...
I love my bed, so you just pick anybody, Andy, and let's get on with it.
I'll probably need to say, if we're not picking Spence, it's going to have to be between like Verdejo or Joshua, in my personal opinion.
See, I didn't go for Joshua because I just thought I'd be absolutely tore because I'm not allowed to mention I try and limit my Anthony Joshua mentions to at least one per fortnight with this podcast. But yeah, you are right. I mean,
Michael Owen said he's the best in the world already, so he can't be a prospect.
Yeah, number one in the WBC. That must make you a contender rather than a prospect.
Well, then we can have Callum Smith in there, can't we? I mean,
Yep. I see Callum Smith. I see Callum Smith.
But I don't know. Isn't he sort of a contender? He's British champ, about to be Euro champ. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like I really don't know how you're going to kind of work it out. But let's ask the listeners as they're tuning in just now, see what they're thinking.
I don't trust anything that happens in that comments box. I think we'll put out a four-way tweet. I think that's a good list. Joshua, Usek, Rodriguez, and what was your pick, Steve?
Julian Williams.
And, yeah, Julian Williams. I think they are four prospects, not for me. Obviously, not fighting for world titles. Not going to be fighting for a world title in the first half of this year. That's what I class as prospects. I think that's a good mix.
What about this? Has anybody seen Regis Probray, I think you call him? Has anybody seen him? He's starting to get a bit of traction. I watched him on YouTube. He seems decent enough. Has anybody seen him?
I've heard the name in the last month, Steve. It's funny you say that. I don't think I've seen any videos yet, but I've heard people talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to know who my 2016 fighter prospect that comes undone, who people are getting way too far behind? Joseph Parker.
I'm going Walters. He's shite. He's going to get done by Uchiyama next year.
That's if Uchiyama can actually fucking find the bollocks to get yourself out of Japan and fight a top name for a change. Paul, you said Usek. I'm just trying to do this poll here while you're all gassing away here, Sam, who was your one?
Rodriguez.
What was that first name?
Saul, like Canelo.
Saul Rodriguez. What's a speller right, or I get trolled? Right. I've asked the Twitter sphere how to answer that one for us. Right, Bellew of the Year. This could take some time. What we're running at just now, we're running at almost 1 hour 40 minutes, so we're doing pretty well. So
this is worth staying up for, Steve. Come on.
There's been plenty, but my vote is there isn't even, it's not even a close competition. I think the Bellew of the Year and decade, the Bellew of the century has to go to a man who had a difficult 2015 in the ring, and his opinions on what people put into rings caused him quite a few hassles. So my Bellew of the Year nomination goes to former two-weight world champion. I'm sure he won in two weights, didn't he? Devin Alexander, for his views on homosexual sex, or anal sex specifically, and how it's not quite natural. He worded it in a rather less eloquent way.
We're talking about Alexander here,
Yeah.
What he said was this. He says, when a man's farter gets stretched, when a vagina gets stretched, it's natural. When a farter gets stretched, it's unnatural, or something along those lines.
Yeah, basically.
Speak away. I'm going to go and find it. Just continue.
Yeah,
I honestly think I know it off by heart.
Yeah.
I don't know it up in front of me, but yeah, it was just. He deleted it, didn't he? In the end.
No, it took him. I know he sort of then played it down as if to say, it's not.
Friends, didn't he?
I have gay friends, and they don't mind that I think that what they do is unnatural based on stretch and unstretched material. Yeah, basically the A word got dropped, and it just was so left field. And we've had a year of boxers saying really quite stupid / homophobic / racist / stupid things, Kovalev, Fury, etc. But
bloody hell, yeah, I forgot.
But yeah, Devin's tweet just stood out for me by a mile.
And it was apropos of nothing, wasn't it? Like no one had asked him a question about like his thoughts. He just in the middle of the weekend, like for no reason at all, out of nowhere. So funny.
Found it. Devin Alexander, he got the 4th nomination that week. It says, only a vagina when it is stretched can tighten back up, but when your anus gets stretched, you are destroyed. It shows you how unnatural it is. I actually had to have 3 goes at reading that. I remember when we did it live, I had to have 3 goes at trying to fucking Read that one out.
So
Jesus.
many layers to it. Like it's a really deep tweet.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously given it a lot of thought.
Andy, also, Devon had previous on that, and I don't know if you would have seen this at the time. It was back in 2013. I can remember a fan sending him a picture from Scotland, and he was wearing a kilt. And he said, like, hey, Devon, love to get a retweet. I'm a massive fan from the UK. And Devon retweeted him and said, why are they wearing dresses in Scotland? That shit's gay as hell. So you might make your shit list now, I don't know.
Is St. Louis in the South America? South part of America, I mean.
No,
Missouri.
it's like Midwest, mate.
Is it Midwest? So he can't even claim that he's like a fucking, some sort of Texan fucking throwback or something
Rough,
like that.
though. It is a rough part of America. Like it's quite sort of rednecky, I suppose, without being horrible.
Well, you've heard him talk. I mean,
Yeah.
he's very, very much from the south. Not that kind of south. I don't know why I went to do Essex then.
That was alright.
That wasn't bad, was it? The wrong kind of. I was listening to Kurt Ward's Essex/Brummie accent, but no, he was. I just think that the problem is because fighters, the access to boxers and how boxers use Twitter is almost different to how most sportsmen do. Occasionally, footballers will do something very stupid, but they're so savvy and they're so media trained, and certain fighters are that way. You'd never get, your Anthony Joshua's putting out a tweet that could be deemed as highly offensive because they're told and taught not to do it. Whereas other fighters in interviews specifically with the likes of IFL, when they probably haven't got their guard up or when they're sat on their phone, boxers can come out with some really silly things. And this year's been quite a bad one I think it's, and people make jokes and stuff, but it just doesn't look in a good light when you've got, if I was a gay boxing fan, a lot of people think I'm a gay boxing fan, but if I was, I'd be sat there and wondering, I'm not so sure about a lot of the people in this sport I follow.
I think you'd have to kind of accept that 99% of the fighters are gonna. It's just such a macho environment to come from, isn't it? Like, especially in like Latino culture and like Mexico and stuff. Like, do you remember the stuff Salido was saying before the Orlando Cruz fight?
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't stand next to him and stuff. It was like you didn't want to touch him.
You wouldn't want to be on the podcast the day after that fucking fight, I'll tell you. A lot of that had to be, that was before we went live, a lot of that had to be fucking edited out, or there was careers on the line after that comment, like.
What happens offline stays offline.
Yeah. Right, so is it unanimous, guys? It's going to be Devon Alexander. I'm itching to tweet him it.
I don't think you could beat Devon, but I do want to give an honourable shout out for the one that, this is as a listener of the show, the one that made me laugh the most throughout the year was when Andre came back after a year of doing nothing, no media contact, no fights, completely irrelevant, and just straight up demanded 50-50 with Canelo. I think that made me laugh, honestly. I was like laughing out loud on the bus listening to that. It's just, and I think Donnie said at the time, it perfectly captures the spirit of like delusion around Belly of the Week. Just, this guy with no leverage at all just says, yeah, I want 50-50. Just, I loved it. It really made me smile.
Right. Alexander, got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bear with me, I'm just going to tweet this.
We also have a cheeky one for Adam Smith and the various bets on Fury getting knocked out off a jab and not surviving the first round and all this.
Oh, he was depressed like fuck after that one. Like, he did a lot of money on that fight. And he had it stretched over fucking every quarter he could think of. Eh? I think he had money on Fury, but he didn't need money. He didn't need Fury to knock him out to win it. To make his
didn't he have it on every outcome apart from a Fury points win?
He had it stretched that far, it was never going to contract for him, poor fella.
Poor cunt. Any other awards, gentlemen? I think we've done no bad to try and stretch this out for this long of time.
Well, that was pretty good. I think self-depreciating awards, this is one for all of us. The time you got it massively wrong this year.
I never get it wrong, mate.
Yeah, I can't think of any time I got it wrong either. Yeah.
I wouldn't be in this hot seat if I was wrong.
I think for
of
me,
the time I got it right.
I think because I've got to try and beat last year's, which was Hopkins to school Kovalev. Obviously, I thought that Tyson Fury would get knocked out as and when Klitschko decided to, but I think I'll probably have to go for my rather hopeful £20 double on a Frankie Gavin to beat Kell Brook and Aston Villa to beat Arsenal in the FA Cup final, which May the
you should have killed yourself for picking those.
May the 30th was quite possibly one of the most depressing days of sport I think I've ever had to endure. But yeah, there's been, to be fair, again, because there hasn't been. When we were talking about the upsets of the year, there hasn't been that many times when people have predicted a fight and have got it massively wrong. But I mean, I will put my hands up. As everyone knows, I thought Fury, and I think Fury gets knocked out in the rematch. But there you go.
I had a reasonable opening sort of quarter to the year, and I can remember being absolutely convinced that Matisse would beat Provodnikov on points and putting some money on that. And I got a bit carried away, but I had a triple in the autumn of picking Matisse to knock out Postol and being absolutely convinced that he would knock him out, and thinking that Postol was nowhere near his level. Then I had Quillen to beat Jacobs by knockout, had some money on that, and then the last one was. Oh, my mind's going blank now. I had I'll come back to me. Sorry, it's completely gone out of my head. I've got one more fantastic error from the autumn.
Can anybody think of anything blatant that I've fucking said bad, apart from like being absolutely hammered on the podcast a couple of times?
I made a bad one the other day, and our old friend Brian King picked me up on it, and I said, I think you asked me a question, Andy, about is Jacob's resume better than Golovkin's, and I agreed with you. But then afterwards, reading it back, I didn't even agree with myself. And then Brian picked me up on Twitter, which was fair enough because it was a silly thing to say, and it was indefensible. So
didn't a few of you pick Broner to beat Porter? Because I remember thinking that at the time was an awful choice. I thought Broner, it was all like the style was all wrong for him. Sorry, I've just remembered my last one. It was I had Rios. I had 30 quid on Rios to knock out Bradley late.
You went Broner as well, didn't you, Paul, to beat Porter?
Yeah, I was trying to avoid that. Thanks for bringing that up, Steve. I'm one of the eternal Adrian Broner optimists. I think that one day he will just get it right. He'll train for 10 weeks solid, and he'll show up and actually look like he's bothered. Because I think from a natural ability point of view, he has an awful lot. But yeah, no, I thought that because I just think Sean Porter was quite a crude fighter, and I thought that Broner would just outwork him, and then he didn't, did he? Yeah, I know the word work and Broner, they don't go in the same sentence, but like I said, this is the whole thing of, you can't get everyone right, can you?
Can I agree on that subject? I think that might be a shout for worst performance of the year. Broner that night was
terrible,
abysmal, to the point where his purse should have been withheld or something. He didn't even try.
But he still gets big fights. He's still gonna get big paydays, isn't he, till the day he retires because of all the shit that he talks.
Yeah, and I think the TV networks still quite like him because he's good for he's good for a quote, isn't he? He's now got a pretend Panamanian belt, and I think there's
people wanted him to get the Pacquiao fight a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean that was serious talks about. I think Khan Broner, if that fight makes a certain level of sense, because one or both of them needs to go away. So I think that if Khan doesn't fight Brook for whatever reason, then I think that's not a terrible fight.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, be it a catchweight though, wouldn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it's whether Broner would be happy to go to 147 or not, or whether he wants to stay at. For me, him saying that he's not a welterweight, I don't think we saw the best of him at welterweight. I don't think it was the weight that was the issue. I think it was the commitment in the Malignaggi fight and against Madonna. I just think he was never really. He was partying in strip clubs and he wasn't that fussed about what he was doing, but.
Yeah, I definitely think he could beat bigger guys if he was focused. I agree with that.
I think Khan's a good shout for waste of time of the year. I think Thurman wasted his time a bit last year as well. I think Andre definitely wasted his time. There's been a few waste of times of the year. Who else can we throw into the mix?
Crawford as well. Bloody hell. What a waste.
Yeah.
All that momentum from last year. Or, sorry, from 2020.
as well.
Yeah, Brook. Ugh. But Bizier should change all that when that gets announced.
Do you know what? One I'm going to say is a slight negative. Do you know, not my biggest, but my biggest disappointments is Marcus Maidana deciding that he had enough money now to feed himself an Argentinian steak for the rest of his days, and that he seems to have walked away from the sport. I think there's still so many good fights that I love watching Maidana. I think there's so many good fights for him, and to see him just basically, walk around at probably about 180 pounds and not not seem to be that fussed about it. I
I
find
don't
that
think he
quite
ever loved the
disappointing.
sport that much, though. I think it was something that he just happened to be good at, and he could make a bit of money from it. And then it, was as surprised as anyone when he ended up on HBO and Showtime and all this stuff. I remember after the
Yeah.
Floyd fight, and he just said, "Look, he said I don't really want to talk to anyone anymore. I just want to go home." And he was genuinely like, "Yeah, I just can't be bothered." And they said, "Do you dispute the scores or whatever? Who are you looking to fight next?" He said, "I don't care." And he just looked like he didn't want to be there.
He's done well,
think
hasn't he? For a guy who was outboxed by Andreas Kotelnik early on in his career.
And
Well-
for someone who Devin Alexander, the famous Devin Alexander beat quite easily, I think that he did well, like I said, with what he got, and obviously because he earned, over $1 million for 2 fights, he earned a decent amount of money for fighting and beating up Broner. I think, his commitment was the same. It was just, you look at the guys in and around that weight now, the kind of nearly guys, I think he could have he could have been in some good matchups, but there you go.
It's a shame he never fought Thurman. Do you remember that fight was all signed and stuff back in 2012, and then it fell through for some reason? That would have been good.
I always thought the one that made 100% sense was him versus Matisse. I mean, 2 Argentinians. I thought, both big power punchers. I thought that fight always made. I know the weights, they seem to be out of each other's weight at various times, but
Batisse's a lot smaller as well, though. If you look at him.
yeah, I think that would have been. I suppose whether it wouldn't have happened at 140, but I suppose it would have needed to for it to be most competitive. But
I still want to say Broner. I think there's the 2 guys who are maybe have peaked in the sport, and that could be a good tear up at some point.
Yeah. But no, overall, in summary, 2015, a year to,
Quickly,
a year of big events, but low on quality, really. I mean, but I think, like I said, this year you have to go into it optimistic, and I think we could be looking at, Canelo Golovkin, the heavyweight division's wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Pacquiao Bradley, as much as I poo-pooed it, I think will actually be quite an interesting fight. So there's
And there might actually be someone will emerge at 147 on the other side as well. Now Floyd's gone, they might actually fight each other.
Yeah, definitely. It's the 25th of the year of Danny Garcia, I'm telling you.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that, gentlemen. Just like to thank the listeners because without you actually pestering us as you're doing a show today. Well, we're back. No action at all next week apart from the fight from Germany. It's a rematch between Vincent Feigenbutz and Giovanni De Carlis. Other than that, we'll try and have some interviews for next week. We've got at least one lined up and a potential Panamanian champion lined up as well. So maybe big things coming on for next week's show. If you want to abuse the people who didn't make it tonight, then feel free to do so. I'd like to thank Paul Webb, Steve Wellens, and the big man himself, Sam Shepherd, who will no doubt get a shitload of abuse for jumping on this podcast tonight.
My granddad calls me Sambo.
Is he?
Yeah, genuinely. I don't think he means it in the same way you do, though.
Well, you're no black, mate, so don't worry. Anyway, I'm your host, Andy Patterson. We'll see you next week. All the best. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.